we found that people with low vitamin D below the level of 30 are more than twice as likely to have a heart attack or stroke. So what happens here is vitamin D stops the blood vessels from getting so sticky, and when the blood vessel gets damaged or injured from inflammation, what happens is cholesterol comes in there to repair that damage, and that cholesterol causes atherosclerosis, which eventually leads to heart disease and strokes. And so vitamin D prevents that. Vitamin D reduces the inflammation that damages the blood vessels and prevents atherosclerosis. The other thing that vitamin D does is it stops this angiotensin and this renin. There's just two stress hormones. These stress hormones, what they do is they cause our blood vessels to constrict, which makes our blood pressure go up. And so vitamin D will block that receptor, so or it will stop the production of that angiotensin and renin, so our body doesn't make that, so our blood vessels can expand, our blood pressure isn't so high. So it automatically keeps the blood pressure down. Brain function, mood, and memory. This is huge because we've known for a long time that there's a thing called seasonal affective disorder. Basically, it's the wintertime blues. We know a lot of people that when it gets to be the winter, they just don't feel the same way. They're tired, they're depressed, they're fatigued. They call it seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which basically means that the low light levels are affecting you. Part of this is vitamin D, and part of it is the sun. So you do actually need to get some sunlight. Light in general will change how our body releases a hormone called melatonin, and so melatonin, it's kind of that sleep-wake cycle. It helps us sleep at the right times of the day. It helps us be awake at the right time of the day. If we don't get enough, we get depressed. If we have too much, we get depressed. So huge function with vitamin D and depression. Vitamin D increases a substance called acetylcholine, which helps our memory. And so we're finding that a lot of people with dementia or with memory problems are very deficient in vitamin D. Protects against stroke, stops nerve damage, which helps prevent against dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And so vitamin D is hugely important to help our brain function run well. And basically it's a fat-soluble vitamin. Brain's made out of fat. It's just needed to help it run well. Helps the immune system run well. It helps the white blood cells develop properly. Helps the white blood cells identify if they need to make an antibody or if they need to make a regulatory cell. People with low vitamin D were 36% more likely to have an upper respiratory infection. So when we look at flu, and they're talking about a huge effect with people taking vitamin D, being able to prevent the swine flu and prevent other flus. Basically, vitamin D is a protector. It helps boost our immune system so we won't be getting these respiratory infections. Cancer is another one. Studies are showing that vitamin D helps regulate cell division. So remember, unchecked cell division, cells dividing too rapidly, leads to cancer. Vitamin D helps us regulate how fast our cells are dividing. It also stimulates the immune system to eliminate cancer cells. So we need a specific part of our immune system to function in order for our body to eliminate cancer cells. It's called a Th2 immune system. That's the part of the immune system that we need to have working in order to get rid of cancer cells. When we have our Th1 system working, our body internalizes problems and leads to autoimmune disease. And so a Th1 response would be where our immune system makes an antibody, which is a war cell. A Th2 response helps our body eliminate this, the exact opposite. We eliminate the problem. And so in order to get rid of a cancer cell, we need a Th2 response. Vitamin D helps make that Th2 response. Protects the highest cancer rates that we were able to find research on, vitamin D helping out, was breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, and skin cancer. So this is interesting. Vitamin D helps prevent skin cancer, but sun, especially sunburning, causes skin cancer. So it's interesting that there's that inverse relationship there, that as you're in the sun, even though the sun can cause skin cancer, vitamin D can help prevent skin cancer. Study at UMass showed that vitamin D and calcium help control PMS, irritability, and anxiety, so I thought that one was kind of interesting. Autoimmune disease. Now this is a big one. This is an antibody. So we were just talking about our immune system making antibodies. And what an antibody is basically a war cell. This cell comes in and it's going to attack whatever the problem is. The problem is if we have too many antibodies circulating throughout our body, sometimes they decide to start attacking our cells. So if we have just soldiers running through the street carrying guns, unfortunately, eventually someone might decide to start shooting at each other. And so sometimes when our body has these war cells circulating throughout the body, they decide to start attacking and they recognize our own cells as a problem. And so vitamin D helps decrease the risk of MS. They found by over 40%, and that was in a study of 187,000 people. So huge. Decreases of rheumatoid arthritis. This was in a study of 29,000 people. Decreased type 1 diabetes. That was in those 10,000 children. Low vitamin D is seen in Crohn's patients. Helps the Th2 response and the regulatory cells and blocks the Th1 response. So basically, when our body attacks itself, if it's attacking the nerves, it's MS. If it's attacking the joints, it's rheumatoid arthritis. If it's attacking the thyroid, it's Hashimoto's thyroiditis. If it's attacking the pancreas, that would be diabetes. If it's attacking the gut, that's Crohn's disease. All these are autoimmune diseases. It's basically the same thing. It's our body attacking itself. Vitamin D prevents that, or helps that stop happening. Bone and muscle health. And so vitamin D helps get that calcium and phosphorus in the body, helps get the calcium into the bones and into the muscles. The only problem, one of the major problems that we have with taking too much vitamin D is specifically with this vitamin D helping them to get calcium in the bloodstream. So if we have too much vitamin D, too much calcium gets into the bloodstream, what we're going to start doing is we're going to start calcifying potentially arteries, calcifying parts that shouldn't be calcified, kidney stones, and different things like hypercalcification. If we're taking the vitamin D and we don't have any source of calcium that we're eating, so we're not eating any green leafy vegetables, we're not drinking anything with calcium in it, we don't have any calcium, vitamin D is so powerful at getting calcium into the bloodstream that it will actually start taking calcium out of our bones to increase the level of calcium in our bloodstream. So if you're taking vitamin D, we need to make sure that we are eating something that has calcium in it. The best source is obviously food, green leafy vegetables. Same note, because vitamin D helps our body absorb calcium, we don't need to be supplementing with as much calcium. So if we're supplementing with a ton of calcium and we're taking a ton of vitamin D, we have the potential of getting too much calcium in the bloodstream. So you probably need to, looking at the source of calcium, the best source again is green leafy vegetables. If you're doing that, you'll be fine with taking the supplements of vitamin D. So how do we know how much vitamin D we should have? The best plan is to get tested. The right test is this 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. It basically measures one of the active forms of vitamin D circulating in the blood. You can just go to your doctor, you can get tested. They'll be happy to test you. Your blood level should be between 50 to 70. That's optimum. You may get tested and they may tell you you're fine. You may be at a 30 and they'll say you're fine. This 30 is kind of the cutoff medically where they want you to be at. That's like the crucial point. Below 30 is bad. We want to be between 50 to 70. And if you've got cancer, if you're concerned about cancer, we want to be closer to 70 and maybe even closer to 80. We start getting concerned if we get blood levels over 100. That's where we're going to start looking at having some potential problems.
That would be too much.
That would be too much. Yeah, we don't want to be over 100. So 90 to 100 would be too much. Below 20 is a high risk for cancer disease. So we're seeing super elevated levels of cancer disease below a level of 20. Most people that I've had in the last month that have been tested are in the 20s. I haven't talked to anybody that's not supplementing with vitamin D that got tested and they were above it in the 20 range. Dr. Alex was taking vitamin D already, and his was 29, and he got tested. So you need to be taking an ample amount of supplement. So how do we know how much we should increase our supplementation if once we get tested? So I printed off a little chart for you here. It's on the bottom of this first page, and it says we get our blood tested. That's the bottom one. It's the bottom line. Let's say we're at a 25, and our goal is to get about 60. So we take, this tells us 26 international units per pound per day. So let's say we weighed 100 pounds, and we wanted to get to 60, and we're at 25, we would need to take 26